Imagine you are standing in the middle of a deep valley in the Guadarrama Mountains, where white mist embraces the grey cliffs like a giant shroud. In that mist, a towering stone cross pierces the grey sky, radiating a sickly yellow, volumetric light, much like the frames in an aesthetically pleasing yet melancholy anime film. This place is the Valley of the Fallen, a magnificent architectural work imbued with the breath of a fairy-tale kingdom, a hybrid between medieval European architecture and the sophisticated carvings of East Asia, but in reality, it is the grave of tens of thousands of people. As the distant church bells echo through the mountain ravines, I wonder, what would you do if the only way for your nation to have peace, after so many years of war and bloodshed, was to learn how to forget everything? Hello, I am a historian who has spent more than 10 years following the scars of world history, and today, I want to lead you deep into one of the darkest and most divisive chapters of modern Europe, the dictatorial period of Francisco Franco in Spain. This is not just a lesson about power, but a story about memory, silence, and ghosts that refuse to lie still in the ground. In 1975, when the dictator El Caudillo, Francisco Franco, breathed his last, he left behind a country standing at a crossroads. To move towards democracy without causing a new bloodbath, the Spanish people signed an invisible pact of forgetting. They chose not to prosecute, not to seek revenge, and not to revisit the painful past. But you know, history has a cruel rule: what is buried alive will always find a way to crawl back to the surface. 50 years have passed, but the ghost of Franco still exists in every ballad, every massive protest on the streets of Madrid, and even in every family meal, where the old and the young argue fiercely about a past they were supposed to forget. Why is a developed, modern, and brilliant country like Spain still being torn apart by a man who died half a century ago? To decode this mystery, we must go back in time to 1936, when gunfire broke out signaling a devastating Spanish Civil War. Imagine ancient cities appearing under a blood-red sunset, digital paintings depicting scenes of ruin with rays of light flickering through smoke and dust, a hauntingly cinematic anime style. Franco was not simply a general, he represented a faction that wanted to protect traditional values, Catholicism, and absolute unity against the waves of communism and republicanism. When the war ended in 1939, Franco ascended to the pinnacle of power over the bodies of hundreds of thousands of his compatriots. He established a new order he called National Catholicism. It was an era of iron and blood, where fierce purges became the primary tool of rule. The pain began from the ground. For decades, thousands of opponents, intellectuals, and workers with liberal ideas disappeared into unmarked mass graves by the roadside, under lush green pine ridges, or in misty valleys. They were taken away in the silent dark of night, and the gunshots that ended their lives were drowned out by the silence of fearful neighbors. The grip was not only on lives but also on the soul of the culture. Franco wanted a homogeneous Spain, without differences. The gentle Catalan language or the strong Basque language were completely banned in public spaces. Women, who once had brief freedom under the Republic, were now stripped of their most basic rights. They could not open bank accounts, they could not go to work without their husband's signature, they became shadows in their own homes. But, as a historian, I must be fair in saying that Franco's regime did not only have darkness. In the 1960s, Spain experienced a miraculous economic miracle. The artificial stability under Franco's iron fist attracted foreign investment, tourism boomed, and a new middle class was formed. It was this stability that created a paradox. A large portion of the Spanish people remember this period as an era of order, safety, and development. They look at the high-rise buildings, the highways, and believe that Franco was the one who saved the country from chaos. This is the seed of the deep division we see today. One side regards him as a mass-murdering executioner, the other regards him as the hero who kept Spain from collapsing. When Franco died in 1975, Spain entered a fragile transition period. They decided to choose forgetting to harmonize. But the ground does not know how to lie. The climax of the story took place on a scorching day in 2019, an event that shook the entire European political scene. The current Spanish government decided on something that decades ago no one dared to think of, exhuming and moving Franco's remains out of the Valley of the Fallen. Look at the documentary footage at that time, the scene of the helicopter transporting the dictator's coffin away from the majestic tomb, flying across the clear blue sky under the harsh summer light. It was not just a physical relocation. It was a political explosion, a knife cutting through the shell of the Pact of Forgetting. Thousands of people took to the streets in protest, carrying old flags, screaming that this relocation was an insult to history, that we were trying to change what had happened. Meanwhile, on other street corners, millions of others shed tears in choking happiness. For them, justice was finally served, and that man's ghost was no longer placed in the nation's most sacred place. This event proves a painful truth: history, if not faced squarely, will always find a way to come back and collect its debt. You cannot build a sustainable democratic future on a foundation filled with unnamed skeletons. Today, that division has not disappeared but has even become more intense. It is evident in the rise of far-right parties like Vox, who publicly praise some aspects of the Franco era. It is evident in the boiling independence movements in Catalonia, where memories of Franco's cultural repression remain an open wound. Modern Spain is still struggling with the question: can we truly move forward if we keep digging up the past? Or must we dig to the end to find the truth, even if that truth might collapse the entire current order? The lesson here, dear friends, is that peace cannot be maintained forever through forced oblivion. A nation only truly matures and becomes strong when it dares to look directly at its own scars, no matter how rugged or painful they may be. Franco is dead, but the battle over the vision for the country of Spain, a completely free country or a country of iron order, has never ended. It is a war without gunfire but full of hardship in the consciousness of every citizen of the land of the bulls. As the dawn gradually rises over the squares in Madrid, dispelling the mist of the past, we see a younger generation standing between old and new values. They look towards the Valley of the Fallen no longer with fear, but with a contemplative curiosity. In your opinion, should a nation choose to close the past to move forward in peace, or must it dig to the end to return justice to the deceased? Is justice more precious than stability? Please leave your thoughts in the comments section below, because each of your answers is a brick building our historical awareness. If you find this story about the ghost of El Caudillo brings you new perspectives, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel to join me in continuing the journey to decode the most dramatic hidden corners of world history. See you in the next historical films, where the mist will gradually dissipate to make way for the light of truth.